Hello everyone, Namaste from India and welcome to LiveWabiSabi podcast. I am your host Shilpi Gupta Shah, former Mrs. India Gujarat Empress, winner of Unstoppable 50 Pride of India and Making a Difference Award, a women empowerment advocate, a digital community builder and founder of LiveWabiSabi Life, a digital media storytelling platform dedicated to authentic human stories. But before any of those titles, I am mother of two sons. I am someone who has lived health challenges, career switches, and reinvented my life in my late 30s. And what I have learned through my journey is simple yet powerful, that our lives are not defined by how perfectly we live, but how courageously we rise from the challenges life throws at us. And this aspect of life is brought to you by this podcast. And let me give you a brief gist about Wabi Sabi today. So, in Japanese culture, Wabi Sabi teaches us that beauty exists in incomplete, impermanent, and imperfect nature of things. And Wabi Sabi invites us to embrace ourselves as we are in our journey, to trust that we are becoming, and to understand that there is profound beauty in unfolding and not just arriving. Yeah, and because we all know the truth is that we are not meant to be perfect, we are meant to be real. And here at Live Wabi Sabi podcast, we serve you real dose of self-love shots, empowering messages through conversations with inspiring women leaders, professionals, homemakers across globe who talk about their journeys of becoming the women they are today. And today we have with us a very special guest. She is Lisa Zarcone, who happens to be a CASA advocate. So, welcome to Live Wabi Sabi Live podcast, Lisa. How are you feeling in this session today?
I'm feeling great. Thank you. Thank you, Shilpi, for having me today. I'm glad I could be here and we could talk about all of these great things today. So yes, it's I'm feeling good, ready to go.
Great. All our pleasure totally. So, Lisa, will you like to tell our viewers that from which part of world you have joined and what's the time at your place?
I am in the United States in Massachusetts. Right now it is 9 a.m.
Okay, so exciting. COVID has brought us, I mean, together, together in a screen, right?
Yes, yes, I know. I'm so used to being on the screen now. It's just, okay, jumping right on, getting in there and having a good old chat.
Yeah. So, will you like to introduce yourself to our viewers? And first and foremost, I would love to understand about what is this, what do you mean by when you say yourself a CASA advocate, like which I have seen on your LinkedIn profile, of course.
Yes. So again, here I am, Lisa Zarcone. I'm an author, child and mental health advocate, public speaker, blogger on my own website, social media influencer. I do a little bit of everything. All of my work ties together. But when we talk about the CASA advocate, this is another extension of my advocacy work that I do. So as a CASA, you're a court appointed special advocate in the judicial system. So I'm working with children who are in the system, who are in DCF and in custody and those types of things. They're in foster care. So I am their voice. I go into court, I speak with the judge, I report, I bond with the child and work with the child's family. So this work is really special work to me, and it really has brought me full circle, because as an adult survivor of child abuse, I did not have that opportunity to have somebody speak for me, help me, be a voice for me. So to be able to do that work now, it really is it's a beautiful gift that I can offer to a child, but also it's a gift for myself. It's a wonderful thing that I'm doing, and it's been a really great experience so far.
Interesting, very interesting. And our main agenda today is to bring out the human behind the success, Lisa. So your journey is deeply layered with advocacy, authorship, and healing at its core. So, what would you say is the defining moment that shaped the woman you are today?
Oh, the defining moment. There's been a few defining moments in my life. I think about the young girl who was struggling in silence with all of the abuse that was happening. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and saying, who are you? What's happening? Like, you're not who you're meant to be. And doing a lot of self work, a lot of self talk to push myself forward. But the really big defining moment is when I finally broke the silence of my abuse. I broke that silence and I went down that road on the healing journey. And that brought me to writing my own memoir. So sharing my story out for the world to hear and to read, that was a very powerful moment for me. And it really made me think about, okay, you just wrote this powerful, raw story. Now, what are you going to do with it? You can't just write a story like that and leave it. So that brought me into public speaking and making me realize that advocacy work is where I should be and probably what I was always meant to do.
Interesting. And said that you broke your silence of abuse, and then you shared your memoir, the unspoken truth, with the world. So I mean, what gave you courage, Lisa? Because we all are laid back by the society, by how society will judge us. So what gave you the courage to finally share your story with the world?
What gave me the courage was thinking about how many people are sitting in the darkness right now. They're sitting in those shadows, not able to speak about what happened to them. And they're suffering, they're struggling, just like the struggles that I went through. And it does filter out into your everyday life. And it really puts a damper on your relationships, work-wise, personal-wise, all of these things. And I wanted to be that person to help other people out of the darkness. So that's really what drove me to take my story, put it on, put it into book form, and then take the next step to speak about it, because it is scary when you put yourself out there, because there is a lot of judgment. There's, a lot of people out there who have unresolved trauma, and it could be triggering for them, and it could actually, be a negative for some people. But overall, it's been a positive experience for me, and I've really helped a lot of people. And I say that because people reach out to me all the time. So I love the fact that I could do that for other people.
Wow, wow. And when you look at your younger self, Lisa, I mean, what is one thing, she needed to hear but didn't?
That I'm sorry, that I didn't.
What is that, when you look back to at your younger self, then
Yes.
what is one thing your younger self needed to hear and she didn't?
Yes, when I think back to my younger self, it really goes about the fact that I felt worthless because I went through abuse for so long. And one of my abusers was my own mother, and another abuser came in and I was sexually abused. So all of these things really broke me apart, broke my self-esteem, my self-worth. So the one thing I wish I heard as a young girl was that, Lisa, you are worthy. You're worthy of good things. You're worthy of a good life. You're worthy of being safe and loved. And those are the things that I never heard as a young girl, that I was worth it. I was worth, somebody saving me. And that is what I would say to my younger self.
Mhm. Was there any ever a moment when fear almost stopped you from using your voice, and how did you move through it?
Yes, fear. Fear is a big one because, again, when you put yourself out there, you're vulnerable. And again, speaking about my story, my family was not very happy about me coming forward. And that fear, did like hold me back for a little while. The fear of my family being so angry with me, and they were. And the negative of me putting my stuff out there the way that I did is I lost family members. I was disowned by many people in my family. And now looking at it, 9 years later, because my book's been out 9 years, I realized that, by me putting out my story, it exposed them for the things that they didn't do, how they didn't step up. And that's their own journey to go on. So I am really proud of the fact that I was able to overstep my fears and use my voice for purpose.
Wow, wow. Overstepping from fears. I hope this each and every woman get this courage, to
Yes.
step up. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying, and when you take that step, you go from that fearful moment and those fearful times, and you step into the light and you realize the bigger picture. It really helps fuel your passion and your drive to keep on going, to be determined to overcome all of those, inner emotions.
Yeah, yeah, so beautifully expressed, Lisa.
Thank
And
you.
you speak about being a voice for the voiceless. So, what does that responsibility feels to you, on a daily basis?
Yes, being a voice for the voiceless is a big responsibility because every day, I honestly, I wake up and I think about how am I going to impact the world in a positive way? What can I bring to the table that's going to help somebody else? And it is a big responsibility because it's always on my mind. It's always with me. And I want to be the best version of myself that I could possibly be because I know by doing so, I am definitely going to reach people on a big magnitude level. And it is every day in my mind, okay, I need to be as positive as I can, share as much goodness as I can, and hopefully touch the hearts of people that are struggling.
Yeah. So, so do you have a kind of program or a coaching? If people come to you, then they get, how do they benefit? From your story. I mean, is it just through your book, or or there is some kind of like coaching or something you are providing?
Yes. So, not only am I a CASA advocate, I am also the Massachusetts National Ambassador for NASCA. NASCA is the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. So, through that channel, people do reach out to me privately all the time asking, how they can gain support in different services, or sometimes just disclosing their abuse and having a good listening ear to help guide them in the right directions. So, through that work, people, write to me all the time, at my email. They go through my website, lisazarcone.net. I always encourage people, go to my website. I have great information. I'm a blogger. I put my stuff out there. So really all that work comes to me with people writing to me privately. And then I do workshops and presentations, and I, share through those channels as well. And I've really had some really great, responses from people, really wonderful outcomes for people that I've helped. So it's a constant, drive of just putting my voice out there, putting my story out there, and, just being open and available. And I have to be honest, anybody who writes to me, I do answer. I answer every single person because I feel like if they're going to take that step to trust me and to talk to me, I have to be available. I need to be, able to validate and help them in any way that I can. So I'm pretty much an open book, and I'm always willing to help somebody.
Wow, wow. And when I visited your LinkedIn profile, I saw about something about your second book as well. I mean, where you talk about your mother. I mean, it touches on mental illness and complex relationships. So, I mean, will you like to talk something about it? Because people generally, don't come up with with a phrase that their mother also could, abuse them in some way. So I would like to, like elaborate this a bit. I mean, as per your book.
Yeah, so the book of Joanne. So Joanne is my mother, and my mom did suffer profusely with mental illness. And our road together was really complex and difficult because we went down that road for years upon years until she passed away. But my mom is interesting. As sick as she was and the struggles that she had, she always said to me, Lisa, please one day, share my story and let people understand the reality of mental illness and how it not only affects the person who's struggling, but how it affects a whole family unit and everyone connected. And I promised my mother that I would do so. And she wanted to have a voice. She never had a voice. She was treated poorly because of her illness, all the stigmas that are out there. So by writing her story, I gave her that voice. I finally was able to put her out there and let people know, how difficult of a road she traveled. And it's interesting because writing her book did give me many levels of healing and forgiveness. When we talk about that word, forgiveness is so hard. When I say forgiveness, people are always like, oh my goodness,
Yes,
let's not
absolutely.
go there. They get nervous, because it's such a hard thing. But by writing my mom's story, I also learned many things about my mother that in life I really couldn't grasp onto because I was always in fight or flight mode and just angry and uptight about her behaviors and what she had done to me, because it was a long, like I said, a long battle, and she did really abuse me in many ways. And the emotional abuse was really difficult, and that took a long time to heal from. But I am healed in so many ways. And writing her book was another, like I said, level of healing. And I learned a lot about Joanne, and I learned a lot of great things about her. And honestly, another thing that I learned about my mom is I have a lot of her qualities, a lot of her wonderful qualities, determination, that fighting spirit, all of those things, and a good heart. My mother did have a really beautiful heart. It was just, clouded by the mental illness, unfortunately.
Yeah, and let me rethink about the condition of your mother, because at that time I don't think that people were that aware about mental health or mental illness kind of thing. So
Yes.
I mean, yeah, bringing out her story must have taught you something about compassion and forgiveness, right, as you were also mentioning. So so now a question: have you forgiven your mother?
I have forgiven my mother on, many, many levels of forgiveness because, again, by writing her story, and I did a lot of therapy work looking through the lenses of my abuser, which is really hard work to do, especially when it's someone so close to you. But by looking through my mom's lenses, by looking at her journey and what brought her to the place that it did, it gave me a lot of answers. It filled in the gaps, and it really showed me how difficult it was for her. And she did not want to abuse me. That was never her purpose. My mother wanted to be a wife, a mother. She was a fabulous hairdresser. She had all these aspirations in life that she wanted to achieve. And unfortunately, mental illness robbed her of absolutely everything. And my older brother, passed away. It was my brother and I. And when he was 9 years old, he passed away from leukemia. And she lost her only son. And that really put her down a dark path. So I have forgiven my mother because it really was not her fault for what happened. She just really struggled, deeply. And, I've come to a place of peace with my mom in that journey.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I just want that if someone is listening, that at least they get some kind of help and perspective that how they should look to these kind of relationships or things. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so now, Lisa, how do you balance advocacy with your own mental well-being?
That's a good question. It's a hard balance. It really is because my mind is always working 24/7, 7 days a week. My mind is always like, okay, what am I going to do next? How am I going to take care of this? What am I going to do? And I have to remind myself because I talk about this a lot about, the mental health, the mental well-being. You have to take brain breaks. You have to step away from what you're doing. You have to change up your scenery and you need to take time just to be. So when I find myself going up, 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 I have to talk myself off the ledge, so to speak. And I stop. I do. And I take myself outside because that's my go-to. Nature, being outside in the fresh air, taking my dog out in the yard, walking, all those things. I do take those brain breaks because I need them just like everybody else. And I have to always, again, I have to be mindful of that is because I can go down the rabbit hole if I don't. And like for anybody else, the mental health, the stresses, life stressors, they really can weigh heavy on us. So I am always constantly reminding myself to stop and pause for a little bit. And I also remind myself it's okay to rest. And for me, that's hard because I have such high energy that I don't want to stop, and I have to sometimes force myself to stop. But those
Yeah.
are lessons for everybody. Remember, when you're stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed, change your scenery. Changing of scenery really does help you, bring you back to your baseline and ground you. So that is really a really good practice skill to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And even I advocate for, rest, that rest when needed. I mean,
Yes.
listen to your body, listen to your gut, listen to your mind.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true because we all shut it out because we're all, moving so quickly. Life now, is always on fast pace. So we have to stop and slow down and say, I need rest. It's okay to do so. And I'm giving my permission to myself to make it happen.
Perfect, perfect. So, Lisa, what is one misconception about mental health or child advocacy that you wish, people understand better?
Yes. The biggest misconception is that people are not willing to step up because they may think they don't have to. The family takes care of the family. There's no outside help needed. And that's such a huge misconception, because when someone is struggling, they need support. The family unit needs support. And it's about asking the questions. Do not be afraid to ask those questions. So the biggest misconception is people stay silent because they think they don't need to step up. They don't need to speak. And that's wrong. You have to speak up as often as possible. Never be afraid to reach out, because we all need help from time to time. In child advocacy, it's the same thing. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. If you see something, say something. If you see that a child is struggling, really step up for that child, because they don't have a voice. They don't know how to speak up. They don't know how to say what needs to be said. I remember as a young child feeling that way, looking into the eyes of the adults and screaming inside of myself, saying, help me, help me, help me. But the words wouldn't come out. So really the awareness comes to always be aware of your surroundings, ask the questions, be kind, be compassionate, and, don't be afraid to help someone in need, because it's the best work you'll ever do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Lisa, you are also an artist. I mean, as per your LinkedIn profile, yeah. So how does art help you express, what words sometimes cannot?
Yes, art is a wonderful outlet, to help ourselves and to work through emotions and feelings. I paint, I draw, I journal. I consider journaling an art, because journaling is really about our inner self. You're putting all those emotions and feelings on paper. I tell people all the time, even if you write one word over and over again and then decorate it, or just how, make it creative, it's all helpful, because it just takes what's inside of us that we're not verbalizing, and it puts it out there on that canvas, on another platform, and you're able to look at it in a different light, and it does help us. It's really a wonderful outlet. I tell everybody, even if you get those simple coloring books, those, was it the mandalas, and you're just coloring, you're just engrossing yourself in that moment. It really truly does help the brain. It does. It helps your mind.
Okay. And you are now creating a children's series, I guess. I mean, which is inspired by your granddaughter, if I am not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God, you don't look like that
I
you
know,
have
I
a
am grandmother. I know. My husband and I are raising two of our grandchildren. We have four grandchildren. We're raising two of them,
daughter.
so we're doing it all over again.
That's a surprise,
I know. My
But
granddaughter. I know. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. My granddaughter's 17 now, so I wrote this series a
goodness.
while ago, and I really, really need to get it out there. I need to get it published, because they're such important stories. She came to live with us at a very young age, and when she went to school, she felt different, because she's being raised by her grandparents, and other kids have their families, and she kind of felt, kids would ask her questions, and I thought about that, and I says, well, to write this beautiful little series about Phoebe, my granddaughter, being raised by her grandparents. She has her stuffed bear that she goes on adventures with, and it's just sharing sweet stories about our life, things we did together, and how it shows children that a family unit is just unique and special in regards to whoever it is who's caring for you. As long as you have love, safety, security, that's what family is about. And that's what the lesson is in those books, is that you can be raised by your grandparents or guardian aunts and uncles, whatever it may be. But as long as you're in a loving, safe environment and you're happy and cared for, that's really is the true essence of what family is about.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that so candidly. And now, on this podcast, we generally talk about your doses of self love shots. So, what are your doses of self love shots which you do it unapologetically?
Oh my goodness, self love. Something I've learned about self love is just embracing myself for who I am. All of my quirks and the things and all the positives. And there's always a little bit of negative in there. As you know, we're human. We're not perfect people. We make our mistakes. But I feel like imperfectly perfect is really the way to put it, because you have to love yourself fully and completely. And I learned that over many, many years. It took me a long time to get here. So I am unapologetically myself, because I am a very straightforward person. I can be blunt. I put it out there. I speak about a little bit of everything. I'm an open book again, and I just embrace who I am fully. And I know every day I do the best that I can. I put good things out there, and I feel good about who I am and what I do.
And is there any song which instantly makes you feel unstoppable?
Actually, there's two that are kind of like my go-to songs, and one of them is "My Way" by Elvis Presley, originally from Frank Sinatra, but I like the Elvis Presley version. And "My Way" just speaks to living your life the way you feel you should, and being okay with making mistakes, but knowing you're going to overcome them. So that song's really powerful for me. And then also the song "Fighter" by Christina Aguilera, because it's just that spunk and attitude saying, okay, throw your things at me because I'm going to come out fighting every single time, and I'm going to do the best that I can to survive and, thrive and make it all happen.
And is there any book, any specific book which has changed your perspective on life?
Oh, there's a couple of books. First of all, I'm going to go with my own book, The Unspoken Truth of Memoir, because that has changed my life in such tremendous ways, because I became, this fierce advocate because of that story, because of my story. And it shows me as a life warrior, as I call it. But when I think of other books, I'm a huge reader. I read all the time. I love to read other stories of abuse survivors. I feel, it's a way of giving back to them and validating their stories. But I think about The Five People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And that story has always resonated with me, because when he talks about that journey in heaven and meeting five different people, it's not the people he would have expected to meet. And he learned a lesson through each one. So life lessons, and that's really what the essence of that book is about, is taking every life lesson that you've worked through and putting it into your current life. So that book motivated me in many ways, because it made me really think about who are those five people and what lessons did they teach me and how am I going to use them in the future.
Wow, wow. And this is the most important aspect, that how we are gonna use this in our future, because
Right. I
yeah.
mean, it's true. And like, think about that. From a child on up, I had a couple of mentors in my life that really helped mold me in different stages, and I think back to those times and I'm like, wow, those words really resonate. And then I think back to my angry teenage years, and I lived with my grandparents, and my grandmother was the most amazing woman, strong, tenacious. She was blind. You would never know it, because she was just such a tough woman who did everything. And she was really, you know, raw with me. She would just boom, put it out there and say it how it was. And she was unapologetic about who she was. I learned many great lessons from my grandmother, and I've gained a lot of strength by, listening to her words. At the time, I didn't want to hear it because I was just so angry as a teen. But as an adult, looking back and reflecting, wow, she was a huge powerhouse in my life, giving me that strength, courage, and, pushing me forward when she knew I needed to hear, those strong words. So yes, all those defining moments bring us into the now and to the future, and just keep bringing them with you, because that's what gives us our strength and courage.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, who is your biggest cheerleader or support system? I mean, apart from your grandmother.
Yes. Oh my God. Honestly, my biggest supporter is my husband, John. My husband, John, has supported me through everything. When I broke the silence and shared my story, he did not know everything that happened to me. I kept it so silent. I mean, he knew certain things, but he didn't know everything, and all that deep, dark, terrible stuff that happened. I had to drop that on him. We were married 10 years, 3 kids in, and here I am dropping this bomb on him. And honestly, he supported me every step of the way. He is my biggest cheerleader to this day. I love him dearly. We've been together 40 years. As crazy as that's a whole lifetime, but we still love each other dearly. We still laugh. We still, embrace life together and enjoy our time and our family. Family is so important. That is the rock of everything.
Wow, wow, yes, family is rock of everything. And now, any gift for our listeners, Lisa? I mean, any how can first and foremost, how can people connect with you? And do you have any free resource or free buy or any offering which you would like to share with the community?
Yes, so please reach out to me on my website, lisazarcone.net. There's so much on my website. I blog constantly about all of the, these things that I'm speaking about right now in my advocacy work and what's happening in the world, with child abuse, child safety, mental health. healing, PTSD, suicide prevention, a little bit of everything that I write about. It all ties into mental health. So there is so much on there that people can read and get resources from. I have a resource page that has many, many free services out there that people can tap into if they're struggling. And reach out to me on my other page where I have my my email address is there, my page to reach out, and I will answer your questions. If you write me, I will answer you. I'm all over social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can just find me there, and again, reach out to me. I will chat with you, and we can talk about whatever's going on. If I can help in some way, I'm always willing to do so. And I want to leave everybody too with my motto. I have a motto that I've always gone by, and it really connects with your motto here on this show, and it's embrace the journey. Embrace the journey, because you never know what's going to go on in your world. You never know what's going to drop into your path. So be aware, be ready, be willing to have an open heart and an open mind, and think outside the box. So embrace the journey as you live your life moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, as we come to end of this beautiful conversation, and you are leaving us with this thought that embrace your journey, and this is also the true essence of wabi sabi. So
Yes.
thank you so much for being here, Lisa, and to everyone who has watched us live or will be watching it later. I wish to let you know that at Live Wabi Sabi Live, I work to create spaces for empowering women by sharing their experiences, and through like features, through magazines, through podcasts, through conversations. So because what I know, what my motto is, it is like that every woman carries a story that has power to inspire someone else. So please do reach out to us if you wish to share your journey, and until then, keep shining and inspiring. Bye bye. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. I appreciate this time very much so. Thank you.
Okay.